It's a happy Labor Day at Run Pure Sports. Monday's 10 game slate on DraftKings. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. And it's the last Monday show for the baseball season, DC. We are going to be full on in football mode and NFL mode, showdown mode on Mondays from here on out. Of course, Sundays are pretty much dead for baseball with the football season beginning this coming Thursday. Of course, Sunday's the big day. DC, did you go on any hikes? How's the long weekend going?
It's going good. Long ride yesterday, so we'll see today. Maybe watch some baseball early on and then go from there. But yeah, had to say goodbye to the last Sunday baseball show yesterday, and today Game Log Mondays. JT, it goes out not with a bang, but a whimper here on Monday morning. No Big T. Who knows what he's doing? But we'll get through this last Monday show. Hopefully, win some money in the baseball streets, and then NFL, like you said, coming quickly. So couldn't be more excited for that. But for now, we'll try to get to the bottom of this slate, get some baseball winners for the people.
Game Log Monday goes on, or the last Game Log Monday goes out with an absence. No Big T. He's missed essentially the last month of these Game Log Mondays. I got a text from him a couple of nights ago. He was in the Atlanta airport eating Popeyes. And I just, like, if that's where you go to get good nutrition, good cuisine, do you really know what cuisine is? So we'll miss him until next season for a Game Log Monday with Big T. As always, any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. And Stevers, good job on the Showdown playbook last night. The man took down top prize for $25K. I was in there, DC, and I watch the Braves, pay more attention to the team in my backyard than probably anybody else in Discord, at least right now. And I couldn't get on board with Hurst and Waldrep. Saw that he had no strikeouts against the Marlins. Thought that maybe teams had picked up something on the tape with the splitter. And then I watched that Sunday night game last night, and that is a devastating pitch. That is one of the best major league split fingers that we've seen in a long time. Of course, guys went away from the splitter because of the concerns that it could bring on the elbow injuries, but he's certainly got a good one. But enough about that. We'll get into this 10-game slate, DC, and we were talking about this a little bit before we came on, and it's not a slate where it seems similar to yesterday, where you look at it and you're kind of trying to pick out where the offense is, and you don't feel good about anything really, except there are a couple of spots, and one of them is right in this first game here at 105 in Washington. The Marlins and the Nationals, these teams, I guess the Marlins still technically a shot to get into the playoffs, but the Nationals are not going anywhere. And recently, of course, the Nationals bullpen has been terrible all season long. Marlins bullpen now joining them over the last 6 weeks or so, and we've got Marlins, we've got Nationals, and we have a bullpen game on both sides. And I guess the only thing that you get a little bit concerned about, DC, is maybe some of these guys are pinch hit risks, but I don't know if these teams are going to do it early enough in the game. It's close to 80 degrees in Washington, DC. This is one of the two spots on this slate where you look at it and you say, I'd be really surprised if we got less than 8 runs here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You don't often get the double bullpen game, right, with inexperienced pitchers, but we do have it today. A legendary pitching matchup here between Andrew Alvarez and Lake Bashar, who I don't think I had heard of either of these guys about an hour ago when I started digging into this slate. But that's the pitching matchup we got here between the Marlins and the Nationals. I don't think either of them going to go deep enough to be relevant on the slate. But like you mentioned, the offenses here do look good. But this game seems almost like a microcosm. There you go, JT, for the slate, where it's kind of a little bit hard to know what to do, right, with these pitchers, because we don't have a huge amount of sample size on them. We don't know how long they're going to pitch into the games. There's pinch hit risk, I think, on both sides of this, particularly on the National side. So yeah, I mean, is there certain we do have these lineups? So is there certain portions of these lineup you're looking to stack up? Because hey, I'm with you. This is a tough slate. I'm out here looking for some guidance. I think it would be the top half of the Nationals that looks best to me, but that is, of course, also the most expensive hitters in this game. Kind of curious where you're looking at this one.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the Marlins just destroyed the New York Mets pitching staff over the last 4 days. For the most part, the team is hitting the ball really up and down the lineup. You look at this lineup and a guy like Javier Sanoja in the 9-hole. I mean, he goes from the cartel to smashing baseballs. He's been hitting the ball very well. Connor Norby, Ari Hernandez, of course, Xavier Edwards, and Agustin Ramirez has now looked like he's come out of his slump. So the Marlins look to me to be one of the best teams on the slate, just in terms of their opponent, the atmosphere here. It's a good park when it gets a little warm. And I mean, the Nationals bullpen it's just not good.
Yeah. Yeah. They've used like 11 different relievers in the last 5 days to kind of shuffle guys in and out. But yeah, like you mentioned, you don't have to worry too much who's available because they all suck. So I think I'm with you on the Marlins. That top of the lineup does look pretty good to me and relatively inexpensive too. So yeah, I'm on board with the offense here for sure.
And before anybody asks, no, we are not playing pitchers in this game. We are not playing pitchers that are going to pitch for maybe 3 innings on this slate, or at least I'm going to try not to. If it happens to one of my guys, it's going to be because it wasn't expected. So I think that wraps up the first game. We'll go to the second game, DC. It is the Mets going into Detroit to take on the Tigers. We've got Sean Manaea at 8,100, Charlie Morton at 7,700. You look on the surface here, pretty good pitching matchup. Morton has been okay-ish since a really, really bad start to the season with Baltimore. Manaea is the guy here just really having trouble getting past the 4th inning. And the under the hood stats, the metrics, the underlying metrics from Manaea look like he would be one of the best pitchers on the slate. We know that Detroit tends to struggle at least a little bit with left-handed pitching. And then this Mets lineup, they sweep the Phillies and then lose 3 of 4 to the Marlins. I guess happy to get the Marlins out of town. I tried this morning to find a way to convince myself that this Mets team was going to be hitting again. They did hit against the Marlins. They just essentially got outscored for most of those 4 games. I think still the Mets are on my short list here of teams on this slate, certainly that have the power to put a slate winning score up. And I think they're going to be in my top tier of teams just based on what I see from the rest of the slate. Not sure I want to play, at least at first glance, I wasn't sure I wanted to play too many Tigers. Then I started thinking about what the Mets bullpen has been through. This is a tough game though, DC. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, was it yesterday? We were all on the Soriano and
yes.
It was Bryce Miller.
Yes.
Talked a lot about them on the show, and you, me, and Boynton were all 3 kind of in lockstep on those 2 guys, which that doesn't happen too often on a big slate where it's the same 2 pitchers that we're all dialed in on, and they both came through. But I just played a couple lineups, and they all had Mets stacks. So we were talking in the text thread. That's like I think the most painful way to lose when you hit on 2, especially low-owned cheap pitchers that both come through. You've got every bat, like I hand-picked like my favorite 8 hitters on the whole slate, and they just don't do anything. You don't even min cash with the good pitching. But enough sob stories from old DC over here. This one I could see it going either way. Morton, I think, is a hard one for me to kind of get a finger on what he's doing. It doesn't seem like. He's like 44 years old. You figure he comes out of the gates just struggling for 2 months. You wouldn't be a pitcher that you would kind of expect to find it, right? You'd kind of think maybe this is the last ride for Morton, but he has been pretty good in the second half of the year. I still do think, despite the disappointment yesterday, the Mets still have one of the very best offenses in baseball. If you just look at the overall production over the last month or so, you look at the names in this order, and it's obviously, it's a bunch of all-stars at the top of the lineup, really. So I'm not scared to go against Morton, even though he's been good. I still think he's pretty blow-up prone. I mean, you watched him pitch, obviously, for years in Atlanta. He is a pitcher who can completely lose his command, start walking guys, leads the league in hit batters every year, can run on him a little bit. I could see the Mets coming back and roaring back to life here. So I do like this Mets team. Part of it is JT pulling up ownership here on these guys. So there's just not that many great offensive spots today. Almost I would say almost like disappointingly so in terms of where you can get excited for bats. So I do think the Mets are one of the teams that I'm looking at closely. And then Sean Manaea, I've played him in his last, I don't know, 2 or 3 starts. For sure. Yeah, for sure his last 2. In both of those starts, he was just absolutely cruising for a while. It looked like he was going to be the pitcher of the slate through 4 innings. And then, like I said, I think in both starts, I know for sure the 2 starts ago when he collapsed against the Nationals and then against the Phillies last time out. He did get 8 strikeouts over 4 2/3 innings, though, in each of those, which I think kind of speaks to his upside a little bit, right? The strikeouts per inning up and high. If he can find some efficiency, maybe gets a double play ball when he gets in trouble early in a count, something like that. I think the upside's there for Manaea. So I am back in on him to some degree at 8,100 against the Tigers. Matchup's pretty good place to pitch. And I have like what I've seen from Manaea, despite the middle inning kind of collapse that he's had a couple starts in a row. So I do like Manaea some. I'm not going to play Morton here, and then the Mets bats do look good. So pretty much all Mets for me in this one.
Probably going to be out on Morton myself. Sandy Alcantara answered the questions that people had about him yesterday. He looks to be fully recovered, a fairly dominant performance against the Mets. For Morton, it's all about the curveball, and I think I just am going to go with the Mets over Morton here with you on Manaea as well. The Sierra, the XFIP, all those numbers in the low 3s. So it's the results that just haven't matched up. Maybe today is the day that catches up. And then one last final note on yesterday at 10% ownership, Jose Soriano, top point per dollar and top performing pitcher on that slate. So pretty good picks there for us, at least in the pitching department yesterday. Lee Price says Manaea is on a short leash given the Mets playoffs hopes. This is what they do. The Mets play for October, and then they just don't end up getting there. It's very sad sometimes, but we'll see what happens this season. As far as deciding between Norby and Sanoja, both third base only, it's just going to be based on what the projections throw in the lineup. So I'm not going to be making that decision myself. I know that Sanoja is likely going to project a little bit worse, but the guy has just been hitting the ball. He's been putting the ball in play, and good things have been happening for that Marlins team. But we'll move on. Again, any other questions, drop them in the chat. Next game, DC. This one is interesting. Chris Bassett and the Blue Jays heading into Cincinnati. Chris Bassett, 8,600. Hunter Green, 9,500. Upper 70s in Cincinnati. Slight wind blowing in. And the one thing that always stands out to me when I see Chris Bassett on the road are those home road splits, and those very significant home road splits. He's pretty good at home. He usually can contain the opposing offenses at home in Toronto, but when he goes on the road, it's usually another story. What do you think about the Reds here as a potential slate breaking team?
Yeah, you mentioned the big thing. I mean, you got to be careful when you start dividing up the stats, the splits into too many different groups because you get the sample size down. But I will say, you talked about the home road splits for Bassett. They are extremely significant this year. If we just go by even just like slugging percentage, it's like 500 away from home, 400 when he's at home. And then JT, he's also got the righty-lefty split where he gets hit much harder by lefties. If you actually look at just the batters he's faced when he's pitched away from home and their left-handed hitters, I mean, you're talking about an OPS well over 1,000 to those types of hitters, lefties away from home, which is about as high as number as you're going to find. That's over 28 innings. So it's not a super small sample size. So if we follow that trend, it's pretty obvious who you want to play on the Reds. It would be the lefties. I think they make a lot of sense. This is a great park just for hitting home runs out to right field. It's great in general, but that is the best spot for it. So I think Elly De La Cruz makes a ton of sense. I do like TJ Friedel at the top of the lineup, but not that you can't play, obviously, the right-handers if you're going for a full stack. But if we're picking off individual best plays for the Reds, I do think it's the lefties. I wish they had a few more in there. I think it's just the Friedel, Cruz, and then Gavin Lux in the 5-hole. So I'm with you. I'm in on the Reds here. Elly, in particular, I think is one of the better plays on the slate. I don't think I'm going to play much Bassett here. Obviously, the home road splits are concerning, and I do think there are better ways to go than $8,600 Bassett. And then Hunter Green, not quite sure where I'm going to end up with him. He did come back to earth last start, somewhat predictably, I suppose, against the Dodgers, but I still do think just on any given day, Hunter Green capable of putting up 30-plus fantasy points. Obviously, the matchup here is not conducive to that with the low strikeout rates that the Blue Jays bring to the table, but still some interest in Hunter Green for me at 9,500. I'm not sure if I'll get to him on my 5 teams, but keeping him at least in the discussion. And I don't know. Don't think I'm going to the Blue Jays, but could be a sneaky stack here. Maybe Green doesn't have it today. So mostly Reds, bats in this one for me. What about you?
Yeah, that 9,500 seems a little expensive for the matchup. Of course, Green, one of the pitchers on the slate with the higher strikeout rate that can dominate any matchup. Dominated the Phillies at home earlier this season. As you mentioned, the only bad game against the Dodgers, we can forgive that since coming back from the IL. I'm not sure where I'm going to land on Green. I think pitching's...
He's too high owned. I mean, if he's really going to be 15, 20%, that feels too high at 9,500 in this matchup to me.
It could be, but then when you look and you consider that one of the other pitchers that we're going to talk about here that I'm pretty sure neither of us is going to be on is going to be even more highly owned just based on name recognition without regard to what the stats recently suggest. Maybe Green is a little bit under-owned in this spot. That's what I keep coming back to is if you look at the pitchers who have the upside to put up 30 points on this slate. Remember, the Reds still very much alive in that race for the wild card. And you've got an old school manager, Terry Francona. If Hunter Green is pitching well, he will pitch into the 7th inning.
Absolutely.
There's not a lot of pitchers on this slate that you can say that about. So I think when you think about the innings upside and the win upside for that potential, if we're right about Bassett and how he struggles on the road, and I personally think 8,600 is a point where it's just too expensive normally for Chris Bassett and what he does. So I'll be in on Hunter Green, just not exactly sure how much I'm going to have. Next game up is in Boston. The Guardians going into Boston. Parker Messick, a rookie with 2 really good starts under his belt. He is 8K. Brian Bello, 8,300 here, DC. Bello's been really good. The price seems a little high. Just seems tough to get interested in playing Guardians bats. And then Parker Messick has been good, but these rookies, they're going to have a bad game. Things are going to go bad at some point. And then the Guardians bullpen a bit watered down here. Still, again, not really my favorite spot, but I could see the Red Sox putting up some runs. What are your thoughts on this game in Boston?
Yeah, another one that's kind of hard to know what to do. Parker Messick just made 2 starts, but both of them have been really good. 7 innings, 6 2/3, 6 strikeouts in each of them. Decent minor league numbers. I still lean the Boston side of this game. Just, it's a tough spot for a rookie pitching in Fenway Park here on a holiday. I just kind of think the Boston bats come alive here against Messick. I guess kind of a gut call, more so than maybe a stats one. It's hard for a rookie, I think, to get 3 excellent starts in a row. I'd expect him to have some regression here. So I do like the Boston bats a little bit. Bayo I like quite a bit at 8,300. The matchup against the Guardians is, of course, a good one. They just don't have many threats in that lineup. And then Bayo, to me, JT, is kind of a front runner type pitcher where when things are going well for him, if he's got a good matchup, if he's got his breaking ball working, he can put up some big scores. We've seen it recently. He's been really quite good over the month of August. And to me, this is a matchup that he should be able to win and get some momentum. I see plenty of strikeouts in that Guardians lineup for Bayo. They're, for the most part, letting him go pretty deep into games. He's been 90-plus pitches in 9 of his last 10 starts, and then just 78 in one kind of random one. But they let him go as deep into games as he can through 100 pitches. So I like Bayo here, 8,300. I definitely like him more than, like a Chris Bassett at the same price point. That seems strange to me if they're really going to be the same ownership. I mean, Sabres got Bayo 4 to 5% here. That feels like a really good play. I would expect it to be higher than that, but who knows? They've got that number for a reason. So I'm in on Brian Bale here, especially if he's going to be anywhere close to the ownership that Saber projects. And then I do kind of like these Boston bats, but part of the problem is a lot of pinch hit risks in this lineup, right? That whole like middle of the order, Ref Snyder, Eaton, I think are pinch hit risks. Maybe Romy Gonzalez as well. So probably would mostly stick, I guess, to that top of the order for the Red Sox. And then, Bayo, again, we'll see when Saber updates the ownership. But if he is going to be low owned, he will be one of the pitchers that I'm highest on the slate for sure.
Yeah, Bayo, another guy that you think can get 100 pitches, get into the 7th inning. And again, there's maybe a handful of those on this slate.
Yep.
Move into you have something else?
No, disagreed. Yep.
We'll move into the next game in Minnesota. This is the White Sox heading into the Minnesota, and Sox are going to have a bullpen game. And it's been a hit and miss bullpen. There are some decent pieces, as we found out in that Yankees game yesterday, but we don't know that they're going to be available today. And it looks like Frazier Ellard is going to start this game. He's going against Bailey Ober, 7,300. Looks like Ober is going to be pretty popular here on this slate. And it looks like, just looking at this White Sox lineup, looks like they rolled out, I guess, what you would consider one of the stronger lineups that maybe they could put out, with Medroth and Brooks Baldwin at the bottom. Interesting spot here. High run total for the Twins. Of course, the bullpen game means that guys like Julian, Outman are certainly going to be pinch hit risks. What are your thoughts here on the White Sox and the Twins?
Yeah, for people looking at the Twins, I think you nailed it. I think it's Julian, Outman at the bottom of the order. I think the rest of this lineup is pretty safe from pinch hit risk, maybe to some degree on Larnach and Wallner, but I think the pinch hitters for the Twins are going to come in for Julian and Outman instead. So I do think the top 7 for the Twins likely safe for the vast majority or all 9 innings in this game, which, yeah, I think they're interesting against the White Sox. High team total, like you mentioned. It is mostly a bad bullpen. Pretty good place to hit today in Minneapolis. So I do like this Twins team. Again, I'll avoid Julian and Outman. I think the other 7 look pretty good. As far as Bailey Ober goes, JT, I just think he's just one of these pitchers. When he's chalk, 25, 30+%, I just kind of blindly want to fade it almost. He's just not that good of an arm. It hasn't been a great season for Bailey Ober. I mean, if you just look at the game log, right, it's mostly disappointing outings that you wouldn't want on your team. So if a lot of people are going to play him, I think it's a good spot to go different. And like you mentioned, it's still not the greatest lineup in the world for Chicago, but it is about as good as they can do. And we have definitely seen over the last month or two, they've spoiled a lot of chalk pitching. It just happened all the time. I think people still – maybe it's changing a little bit with Colson Montgomery, who just absolutely stud. But it seems like people still kind of put the White Sox in the same bucket as, the road Rockies or the Pirates. And I think they're a better offense than that right now with some of the guys that they've called up. So I'll take some of these Chicago bats. I mean, Montgomery at 4K against a fly ball. Ober, who's chalk. That seems like an awesome play. The Twins bullpen also, it's not that great anymore. I mean, we're seeing, I got Saber ownership pulled up. We're seeing sub 5% on all these White Sox bats against a very hittable home run pitcher in Ober. Why not? Why not get on some of these Sox bats? So that's the way I'm going to play this one. Obviously going a little bit against the grain, but on a day we don't love that many offenses, I'm fine going up against a chalky Bailey Ober with the contrarian stack. So yeah, talking myself for sure onto some of these White Sox bats, individual ones. I've been on the Kyle Teal train, hitting third at catcher today. I think he's a good one. Montgomery would be second. And then top of the order looks okay to me too. Tauchman, Sosa obviously can only play one of Teal or Cuero. Maybe you throw a Benintendi or a Chase Meadroth in there. But I'm in on this White Sox team as a contrarian option today.
Yeah, they just have not been as bad as people think, as bad as people expected them to be. And some of these rookies you mentioned, Teal, Montgomery, have been good. Lennon Sosa hit a home run yesterday to actually put the game out of reach. 3-2 walk, not a walk-off necessarily, but he did hit the game-winning home run yesterday. So with you here on this, I think I might lean Sox, even though the totals are inverse. I lean Sox with the potentially more scoring outburst than the Twins in this one, just because, like you, I think people are underestimating how bad Bailey Ober has been this season. Next game, we go to Houston. The Angels stay in Houston. Yusei Kikuchi, 7,800. Luis Garcia making his first start in quite a long time. He is 7,500 off the IL. And not sure that I want to play Kikuchi here in this spot, but I'm also not in love with playing the Astros. And then, I mean, Garcia at 7,500, I used to love playing him. I played him a lot more than other people did because he just seemed to be a very steady pitcher. Got up to 75 pitches in his last rehab start. So I think you're looking at a ceiling here of maybe 80 to 85 DC, and that could be enough against the Angels.
It could be. I mean, we haven't seen Garcia in the big leagues since 2023, right? So it's been like 2 full years. And he's, I mean, at least according to Saber, going to be one of the most popular pitchers on the slate at 35.
I think they're wrong. When I looked at it, because I did a Saber run this morning, and I really didn't change anything except I took the relievers out, right?
Okay.
And so it gave me like 40% Luis Garcia. And when I looked at their projection versus the industry, their projection seems to take nothing out for the layoff, nothing out for a pitch ceiling, nothing out for anything like that. So, you know, I sat there and I looked at it and I said, okay, I just don't think this is right. I think I'm probably going to fade Garcia here, but again, don't really love the Angels either.
I'm with you. If Garcia, again, I do think he'll come in lower than that number, but still, I mean, who knows what exact version we'll see from Garcia. It's not going to be the full workload. Like you mentioned, I expect around 80, 85 pitches. It's just been a long time for Garcia. Kind of hard to jump right back into the heart of a big league season. So I'm out on him as a popular play. I mean, I think I know he's a little more expensive, but I like Bayo a lot better than Garcia. And the Angels are a dangerous lineup. The strikeouts can be there too. They're one of those teams that can either propel a pitcher to a slate winning performance or get there themselves. I might play some Angels bats if they're going to be, really low ownership. And again, don't know quite what version of Garcia we'll see again on a tough slate. I think that's a gamble worth taking. Kikuchi, I mean, hard to know what he's going to give on a start-to-start basis. I played him last time out. That was not fun. Kind of leaning against that today, but I'm with you. The Astros, I think, are an okay stack. You get all the righties against Kikuchi, so there's some upside there, but they're not the most exciting team in the world in general. So I don't think I'm going to end up with a whole ton of this game, but actually lean the bats as my preferred plays, which I do think will go kind of against the field. I'll probably throw in a Astro stack there. The Pena, Correa, Altuve, and then you can include Walker, Diaz, Alvarez, however you want to play that, I think is fine. I think they do make some sense against Kikuchi, who can kind of lose it a little bit like Charlie Morton, I think, where it kind of come and go. The command can. So I do like the Astros maybe a little bit more than I plan to going into the show.
You're probably not going to see Taylor Ward this afternoon. Obviously, bad injury running into that metal outfield fence there in Houston. So maybe a little watered down. Again, the issue here is the ceiling for Garcia. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near 35% owned. So we are, an hour and a half before lock. So I'm sure that Saber is going to continue to run some updates, and maybe we'll see some updates come there. All right, next game on the slate, DC in St. Louis. The A's leaving their minor league park heading into St. Louis. Luis Morales, 8,500 now. Sonny Gray, 9,300. And guys in Discord want to play Luis Morales. Big outing last time out against the Detroit Tigers. There are a lot more strikeouts now in this Cardinals lineup with some of the injuries and some of the call-ups. The projected lineup looks like the back four are straight minor league hitters, but DC, Luis Morales, after that outstanding performance against Detroit, and he's been very, very good both at home on the road, strikeout rate right around 25%. Now he gets a $1,500 bump in price. He's 8,500. What are your thoughts here on Morales, Gray in this game?
Yeah, the matchup for Morales, no question, is a good one against St. Louis. Good place to pitch, and he's been awesome. I mean, 3 starts in a row, obviously, especially the last one looked good. The pitch metrics grades look pretty good for him too. It's especially his slider is grading out insanely high in terms of the velocity and movement compared to other sliders across the league. So, that could be enough against this Cardinals team. Obviously, it's a pretty bad lineup, a lineup to pick on. The park's good. The price for Morales, of course, is, at 8,500 has come up, but he's earned the price tag, no question about it. So, yeah, a little torn what to do on him. Do we expect him to be I assume he'll get some more ownership than the 3%, 4% he's projected for. But again, not projected to be super high. So I would be in on Morales if this 4% ownership number is close to true. Again, I would expect that to be higher. But if it is between 5 and 10% or something, I think Morales is a pretty good play at low ownership. And then, Sonny Gray kind of doing his thing. We know what to expect from him. I think he's okay here. He's going to be very popular. I wouldn't be shocked to see Sonny Gray actually be the most popular pitcher on the slate when it's all said and done. Would make sense. People love playing pitching in St. Louis, and I think people just play a lot of Sonny Gray in general. So I get it. There are certainly strikeouts to be had against the A's, but it's no cakewalk against this lineup. There's a lot of good hitters in that A's lineup, obviously, especially at the top end. So no guarantee of success for Sonny Gray here. The top end of pitching, though, does look kind of sketchy. Like Hunter Green, the matchup against Toronto, you got Sonny Gray. I don't love it. We'll talk about Mizorowski against the Phillies. That doesn't feel great to me. I've been out on Spencer Strider, so this looks like a slate where maybe you could spend down a little bit. And I guess, feels weird to have Morales kind of in the top tier of pitching, but I think it probably justified. So I do like Morales a little bit here. We'll probably mix in Sonny Gray, but I think under the field for me on a big ownership number for Gray. And I don't mind going to some of these A's bats as I assume super contrarian options. I'll pull up the A's ownership here. Yeah, 1% owned. A's feels like a pretty good play on this slate to me, even if they're not, maybe the very top option. So, yeah.
You do have a bad bullpen, and we know that Sonny Gray is 90, maybe 95 pitches, right? The Cardinals are not making a run for it. And look, this is one of the decision points on the slate, DC. I was talking with one of the guys in a Discord, and I said, look, Morales has been great. He's coming off a ceiling game. He got a $1,500 price rise. His estimators, meaning the Sierra and XFIP, are 3 full runs higher than what he's actually earned. 92% of men left on base. Batted balls in play around 200. At some point, he's going to regress. It's just bound to happen. But he's been very, very good. And you look at this St. Louis lineup, as Andrew Martinez says, now you've got Sagisi, Pajes, Walker, Church. Probably a better lineup than the projected lineup the one that came out. But yeah, we'll see. And then Nick Kurtz is hurt, number one. Steve, welcome. And then Christian Lyon. I think that stadium is going to be either retractable or it's going to be a dome. So I think you are not going to have to worry all that much about sweating off the testicles. So let's move on to the next game. Just a couple games left here. This one, DC, you mentioned a little bit about Spencer Strider. It's the Braves. After an extra inning win in Sunday Night Baseball, heading to Chicago, Spencer Strider, 8,800, Colin Ray, 6,700. And Strider's ownership does not match the metrics. It does not match the lower strikeout rate. It does not match the higher xFIP, the higher SIERA. There's no way that he should be this highly owned. However, Tanner Gordon scored 30 points against the Cubs yesterday, DC, in Coors Field. The wind is blowing in here. What are your thoughts on the Cubs and the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, from the very first couple starts that Strider got back, I was on the show or Discord or writing my articles that this is just not the same Spencer Strider that we're used to seeing. And it's weird, JT. It's almost like the public, the field, has just like refuses to admit it, because every time Strider is high, every single slate, Strider is higher owned than I think he should be. Whether that's in a bad matchup, in a good matchup, obviously it gets boosted higher. But I'm always lower on the field than Strider. On Strider than the field is, and I'll continue to be so. I mean, he hasn't had a 20-point fantasy game since July 18th. We just hit, obviously, September. Big negative scores in 2 of the last 3. You look at the strikeouts, they've really kind of completely dried up. I mean, he's got 7 total strikeouts over his last 3 outings. He's always been a guy that's given up hard contact. He's just had enough strikeouts to kind of mitigate it, right? You get a big strikeout, get out of a jam. Doesn't really have that anymore, and I don't think he'll have it against a Cubs lineup. I know, disappointing yesterday, but still a strong lineup overall. This is a game I wish we had better Wrigley weather, with even just a neutral game or some light wind blowing out. I would be in on the Cubs here. It's kind of hard to do it with wind blowing in Wrigley, but I still think I'm going to jump in on the Cubs here. I just want to bet against Strider. The field does not want to do that. You're going to get the 20% owned on Strider just because of the name value. And then, like usual, the team going against Strider will have no ownership. I mean, we see sub 5% on the entire Cubs lineup. I gotta be in here on the Cubs at low ownership. So count me in. I'm out on Strider. Not playing Colin Ray either. We'll look to some of these Braves lefties. I think are decent. Again, wish the park was better for hitting today, but I still do like. Profar has been insane. I don't mind Olsen, Harris, Baldwin. Obviously, can play the righties too, but I do prefer lefties against Colin Ray. So I'm actually looking at hitters in this game. Feels a little weird given the lack of home run wins. Don't usually play into bad win games in Wrigley with hitters, but I think I'll make an exception today. So I'll be in on the bats from both sides here.
Strider, it looks like the last game I watched, and I was wondering when they were going to take him out, but looks like they're trying to let him work through this and essentially learn how to be a different pitcher at the major league level. So I think it's certainly a tough spot to be in, but you couldn't argue for better weather conditions here. We'll see how that goes for him today. I'm not going to be anywhere near the field on Spencer Strider, but as we talk through pitching, DC, it's not a clear-cut pitching slate today. There's a little bit of issues with everyone that we get to. Christian Lyons still upset with Jurickson Profar for not coming through on his showdown.
After yesterday, JT, we'll probably get the stacks dead on, and then our pitchers will bust right after we nail them.
Right. pitchers will go boom or bust, and the lineups will go boom. So
it's better to get everything completely right on one day and completely wrong on the next. But splitting the difference doesn't do a lot of good in DFS, does it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right, next game in Milwaukee, the Phillies heading in there after Sunday Night Baseball. Taijuan Walker, 7K. Jacob Mizorowski at 9K. DC. Seems like a good spot for the Brewers against Walker and bullpen that got a little bit of extra work last night in an extra inning game. What are you doing here with the Phillies and the Brewers?
Yeah, all offense here for me. I do think this is one of the better spots to go to offense. Obviously, the Brewers. I say it often on this show, but I kind of think they're lower owned than they should be on most slates. I think it's maybe due to a perceived lack of like superstar players, but for whatever reason, less people play the Brewers than I think they should. They will be fairly low owned today. Sabres got these guys around 5 to 10% ownership. That feels fine to me. And I think one of the better matchups that any team has going up against Taijuan Walker, who has been a little better recently, but he is still a pitcher that I want to pick on in general. And yeah, Brewers, I think, are a good way to do it tonight. So in on the Brewers bats and Mizorowski on the other side. Fun guy to watch pitch. 10 strikeouts last time out over 5 innings against Arizona. I do think he's going to be one of the more boom or bust pitchers of anybody. Just, he's just a giant dude with incredible stuff. But oftentimes what comes with that with a young pitcher is, lack of command, doesn't know where the ball's going necessarily all the time. And that can lead to rough outings. So we know Philadelphia, if they are getting ahead in counts, right? If Mizorowski can't throw a lot of strikes, they got the power to make him pay if he's got to come in with some, meatball fastball. So obviously you're going to pay for the big bats you want, but I do like low-owned Harper and Schwarber in this one. In the low-owned Philly stack in general, I think Mizorowski's got more blow-up potential than these ownerships and just his general skill level would indicate. Again, it's nothing against his stuff, but I do see a pitcher who I think is capable of just completely imploding. It's going to be hard to predict when that's going to happen, but Phillies are a patient team with some good bats. Wouldn't be surprised if they did some damage here to Mizorowski.
All right. We've got the last game. And this is, one of the more obvious spots, maybe all season, DC, for offense. The Giants and the Rockies in Colorado. For the Giants, it's going to be Kai Teng, who is 6K, and then Chase Dolander, 5,500. The Giants have been red hot, even scoring double-digit runs in their huge park in San Francisco. But the other thing, Kai Teng has been mostly bad, and people are still overrating this Giants bullpen. The Cubs put up a lot of runs against this bullpen. The Orioles put up a lot of runs against this bullpen this weekend. This almost seems to be a no-brainer, don't overthink it spot. This series between the Rockies and Giants in Colorado could be just absolutely off the charts in terms of offensive production. And it gets started here with a day game, weather in Colorado looking to be in the 80s, which is one of the warmer spots on the slate. I don't love to play the Coors Chalk. I don't think many of us here do, but just seems a spot like it almost unavoidable that runs are going to be scored in this game. DC, what are your thoughts on the Rockies and the Giants?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard not to like these. Especially the Giants bats. Obviously, the better offense of the two. They get Dolander, who actually has some time. I played him some last time out in Houston. But man, when you get him in Coors Field, the results just completely crater. He's got an ERA of close to 10 in 41 innings in Coors Field. Just 10 home runs given up, tons of base runners. And yeah, I think it, even obviously it's a great place to hit, but I think it could sort of, especially as these younger pitchers, it gets in your head a little bit, right? When you just can't find any success start after start pitching in Coors Field. I think Dolander is going to continue to struggle in this park, including today. You're going to get big ownership on the Giants. Obviously, we're seeing, around 20% for this team. But like we've mentioned many times, we don't see a ton of great offenses to love. So sometimes on those slates, you got to go to Coors Field. And the weird thing is, JT, it's like it doesn't seem, even if there were other great offenses, you would still see the Giants at 20%, right? And then when there's not, it's still kind of the same number. It's almost like the Coors Field ownership just kind of locks in at what it's going to be, and then people find other places to go. So I'm more apt to play it when there are a lack, or what I think is a kind of a lack of other good offenses. I'm more willing to go to Coors Field chalk, which I am today. I will play the Giants. I'll play some Rockies too. Tang, like you mentioned, going for the Giants. It's actually been really bad against right-handed hitters. It's a small sample size for Tang, but that would set up well for this Rockies lineup if that does prove true. Obviously, a mostly right-handed lineup with the JT. I think we're going to see a lot of runs in this game, and I'll be rooting for it. I'm in on some Coors Field hitters today.
Yeah, and as usual, right, when you look at this game, you see the Giants at 20%, but you see the Rockies right around 6-7%. And I think the Rockies have at least the same chance of putting up an outlier score in this game than the Rockies do, just based on, than the Giants do, just based on the bullpen that is going to come behind K-Wei Tang. All right, that does it for the 10 games. Core plays will be up. The playbook will be up. Guys will be in Discord answering the questions, but let's do a quick pick six, DC. Let's see if we could find a nice pick six that's going to maybe for $10 get us a couple of grand.
Yes, let's jump into it. I think it's fun to make these on kind of the stuff that we seem to agree on for the most part. One of those players seems to be Elly De La Cruz. You get it with over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. We think he's going to have success against Bassett in that matchup. So we'll start with Elly De La Cruz. What about pitching? What are we looking at for pitching?
Maybe I guess Manaea is the guy that we both like, although nervously like.
Yeah, let's see what we got for Manaea. Yeah, I think it's the strikeouts that you want, right? Yeah. Let's do 4.5 because it's hard to get 6 in a row. So we'll take a little bit less multiplier on Sean Manaea, 4.5 Ks. Can we fade Bailey Ober?
The earned runs allowed.
Yeah, there it is. He's given up over 2 earned runs or more to Toronto. To Chicago rather. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Let's get how about a Montgomery home run? We'll get a little correlation with the Bailey Ober fade. You like over half home run or over 1.5 hits run RBIs?
Let's do the hits, runs, RBIs. Let's do the HR.
We'll throw that in there. So we got Montgomery over hits, runs, RBIs. Bailey over 1.5 earned runs. Manaea to get at least 5 strikeouts, and Elly to get over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. Anyone else you're thinking about here, JT?
Let's see what the Brewers are up to. What do we got on the Brewers?
Yeah, I'll pull up the Brewers team. There we go. All right. Let's look at the you have anyone specific you're looking at?
Churio and Terang. Let's not do the home runs, though. Let's do like hits or RBIs.
Yeah, hits. They're not giving us a lot of options. Total bases?
Yeah.
1.5.
Yep.
All right, we'll throw Churio in there. 1.5 total bases. We need one more. Can we fade?
Let's go to the Rockies. Let's go to the Rockies.
All right, go to the Rockies. Total bases.
Let's do Moniak.
Moniak, 1.5 total bases. All right, there we go. There's 6 for the pick 6. Moniak over 1.5 total bases. Churio over 1.5 total bases. Montgomery to get the hits, runs, RBIs. Bailey Ober to allow at least 2 earned runs. Manaea, 5+ strikeouts, and Elly De La Cruz over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. There you go, JT. There's the pick 6 for today.
Beautiful. All right. As always, DC, final thoughts on the slate?
It's kind of a tough one. I think going to some of the Coors Field chalk makes some sense, both sides. I do think I'm going to end up with a decent amount of Manaea, and then I think I'm buying in somewhat reluctantly on Morales, but certainly like the matchup for him. So might be going to that a little bit as well.
All right. Core plays will be up. Playbook will be up if it's not already up. The Boom Report should be up. Slate Builder, all of those things. It's been a great season on Mondays. The final, not so game log Monday. But DC and Steve will be back tomorrow night for the Major League Baseball slate. And I'm sure we'll have cores and some other info for the slate tonight. Happy Labor Day. Good luck in your contests.